Hey everybody. Just waiting on the things to all go live here. And I gotta copy the link here. Kitty is on her way, so she'll be here soon. Okay, Twitch is good. Good evening. It's good to see you. I was just in a Spaces on Twitter where we were kind of supporting each other and just kind of being there for each other. And figured I would do the same here. See who wants to come in and just kind of hang out. See what we can do to be there for each other right now when things are tough, things are hard. It's not a. Gotta get my drink open here. It's not a day of. It's not the day that we thought we were going to have, but there's still a lot of good things that happened, and I want to talk about some of those too. There's a lot of stuff, and I also want to talk about what we do next as a force for good. Sorry, Twitter is. I don't know why Twitter won't create the. I don't know what Twitter's doing. I'm gonna close this out and try again, I guess. I don't know. We're not live on Twitter for some reason. I'm not sure what's going on. I don't know. It's this whole Twitter thing is so freaking broken. It never works right. Let me try creating it again. Sorry guys, I hate live Okay, there it is. Now it's working. I don't know. It wasn't working a second, now it is. Sorry, I was hearing myself. Okay. Come join us. Let's talk about the results of 2024 election. There we go. Let's post that. There we go. Let me pin this. Okay, so hi. How are you? I made a video today. Basically, Kitty. I made a video today where I talked about the two things I think went wrong with the Dems strategy, and not only strategy but application of their strategy. And ruffled a couple of feathers. I know it probably might, but I think there were two really big things. Turnout was down. Turnout was down for Republicans and Democrats from 2020. We're going to talk about that in just a second, why I think that happened. And also messaging. Not necessarily the message itself, but getting that message across to people who vote. And I want to talk a lot about that because I think there are some important distinctions to be made there. It's not just... It's like anything else in life. It's not about what you say. It's about how you say it, where you say it, when you say it. And I want to be really, really clear. I don't put all of this, or even most of this, on Vice President Harris. I think the problem, it is. It is. I don't disagree. I think the problem resides largely at the DNC. Vice President Harris raised over $1 billion in a couple of months. People loved Vice President Harris, and they loved organizing for her. They loved volunteering for her. They loved raising money for her, and they loved raising money. I sent it to you on Twitter. Sorry, Kitty didn't get the invite. That's why I thought she was doing stuff. There she goes. She'll be here in just a sec. So, yeah, we raised over $1 billion had one of the best ground games that I've ever seen a campaign have versus a campaign that didn't really even have a ground game and lost the entire blue wall. And I know a lot of people are, I know there are a lot of feelings out there about turnout, and that people feel that something suspicious might be going on with votes. I don't agree. We can talk about that too. I think this was just people not feeling galvanized. And again, I don't think that was the. I don't think it's Vice President Harris's fault in any way, shape, or form. I thought the things that she did and the way that she did them were perfectly fine. She's one of the most qualified people to ever run for president. She's got a great, excuse me, she's got a great presence. She's got a great, hi, Kitty. She's got a great, she got a great way with words. Not the best, or I mean, she's not Obama, but literally nobody is Obama. Obama is like probably the greatest orator of his generation. And
Definitely once in a generation.
right, and people would be like, "Well, I saw this multiple times on Twitter from Democrats being like, well, you know, I just wish she had that presence of Obama on the stage." I'm like, I wish I had the presence of Obama on the stage, but no one does except Obama. Like, you can't compare how she performs on stage to Obama just because they're both African American, which is what a lot of it felt like. Let me describe to you what I mean when I talk about messaging. Messaging didn't work. For a living, I work in finance. I help people with retirement. I probably talk to, on average, let's see, like 4 or 5 people a day. So in a week, I talk to roughly 20 people, 20 new people each week. I would say every week, 5 or 6 of them says something to the effect of the economy is bad. These are people so interested in retirement that they'll look up the retirement products we're talking about before we've talked them up, or before we start talking about them. Like, these are people who are engaged with finance, with saving, with retirement, and they think that there's a bad economy when the economy's not bad. Prices are a little bit higher than where we'd like them to be, granted, but we've had all year a record stock market, wages are up, job growth has been high. This last jobs growth report was not where we wanted it to be, but, you know, the party's got to end sometime. We've had the strongest economy in the world post-pandemic. It's not even close. Our economy is far stronger than every other economy. So how can you have all of these things, and yet people that I talk to, these aren't anecdotal, this isn't hearsay or anything, these are people that I talk to, prospective clients that I talk to, that I'll say, well, you know, the economy is bad, and then I'll say, well, you know, no, and they'll be shocked. Go ahead. Oh, you're muted.
Oh, am I?
Now you're not. Now you're fine.
Okay. But no, I brought this up earlier where I'm angry, for a lot of reasons.
Sure.
And I kind of went off on a bit of a rant because I understand that right now we need to be building bridges and coalescing where the more leftist people, like, we need unity on our side, you
Sure.
know? But there is something I'm seeing a lot of, and it is essentially the people that claim to love and want to protect marginalized people, but are the ones that would be the least affected by what's coming down the pipeline, saying, okay, I'm going to cut and run.
Right.
Essentially, like the more well off men just
Mostly.
wanting to go. And in that rant, I basically said that, look, it's frustrating and I'm angry at those people, but I'm also angry at the Democrats for completely shitting the bed because they always take away the exact wrong lesson by running further to the right. And why
Yes.
would anyone want Republican light when you can just have full flavor Republican? And by not leaning into the populism, they had a populist juggernaut in Tim Walz. He is literally the second coming of Bernie Sanders, but they didn't utilize him properly. I mean, Bernie would have won in 2016. I will stay on that hill
Oh yeah.
until I take my last
It
breath.
scared the shit out of the DNC how much he was going to win. They were scared about it.
Yes, absolutely. And Tim Walz could tap into that same thing. I saw something, I think it was Vox, where they sat down and they just had him talk to a room full of undecided voters. And after having conversations with them, he got them all to want to vote for Kamala because he explained, hey, no, like Trump's policies would actually do the opposite of what you say you want. Or, our economy actually, by the numbers, is actually the best in the world right now. And the policies we want would make things easier on everyday working Americans.
Right.
And they they essentially announced him. Kamala got a huge boost, and then rather than utilizing him, they leaned into the never Trump Republicans and the Liz Cheneys of the world, which again just brands them as Republican light. And nobody likes diet. Like, even people that drink diet soda, nobody likes it. You might acquire the taste for it where you don't mind it, but diet soda is disgusting, and it is the exact same thing of diet Republican when they run to the right that causes huge issues, and it's why they keep losing. But I do take comfort in the fact that he won by fewer votes than last time, which means that there are people that did not agree and did not vote for him again. And there are still millions of Americans that did not vote for him. So ultimately, the big takeaway is, you're not alone on our side, and we definitely need to be building, coalitions and bridges. And it's gonna be rough. Like, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I have been oscillating between numb, crying, angry, scared, and honestly, it's just I've been all over the place today. And my TikToks have proved it because I have definitely made TikToks in each of those mind states, and you could probably go through and pick out which one I'm
I
feeling at
did.
which moment.
I did. I already did that.
But it's frustrating, it's disappointing, it's not surprising. Misogyny, once again, the most qualified candidate to ever run for the office, but because she is a woman, it just I don't think we'll at this point I don't think we'll have a female president in my lifetime.
Yeah.
And I my life is only half over. I
So
mean, unless I get rounded up, but that's a whole other story.
I pissed some people off last night. I do that sometimes. But Ellie Mistal posted. He and I were both tweeting at. I don't even know. This was at like 3 a.m. or something. Ellie said, Dems are never nominating a woman again, is what he said. Ellie, for those who don't know, he's a person of color. So that's why what I said to him mattered. And I said, I hate saying this, but probably not a person of color either, not for a long time. And people got mad at me. And I'm not, I personally, I just voted for one. I have no problem voting for a person of color. My point is the Dems are going to take the wrong message from this. Okay, listen. I want you to look at me. Hi guys, it's your old pal Ethan. I want you to listen to me real quick. An overweight Asian trans person could win the presidency in the United States of America. It does not matter. The things that used to matter about like photogenics and relating does not matter. What matters is that your message gets to voters and that they want that message. There is a clip I am going to play for you. If you're not in the Discord, you haven't seen it. If you're on the Discord, you already have, and you get to watch it with me again.
It's all vibes based.
I was scrolling through
literally
our
vibes
DMs
based.
and I was like, where is it? Oh, well, that's because I was scrolling through my DMs with Miss Kitty. But I'm going to show you a video. So it is way further up here than I realized. So give me just one. Wow. Wow, you guys really went crazy in the Discord today. Wow.
I
That's
mean,
fine.
we're all
Fine.
in
I was not,
mourning and anxious, so
I
it
know.
kind of makes sense.
I was not expecting it. I'm totally fine with it. Okay, let me share the screen here because I want you to see this. This is a woman from Arizona State University, ASU,
Oh, this one
being interviewed.
hurts me so
This is a very
deeply.
short clip. It's only 7 seconds. Here you go.
And I like that he didn't actually plan to ban abortion. He just brought it back to the States.
We are in the age of sound bites, bumper sticker slogans, nobody actually paying attention to the policy. They just scroll through real quick, hear something that sounds good to them, and then their mind just fills in the rest of the blanks. And it is all vibes based. You know, you pass the vibe check, we vote for you, regardless of if we have video evidence of you on both sides of an issue, regardless of whether you say you want to tear up our Constitution or are a convicted felon or rapist. Like, it doesn't matter. None of it matters as long as the vibes.
It doesn't matter anymore. None, none of the things that should matter to the electorate matter. Just in case no one knows, Trump is directly responsible for putting multiple Supreme Court justices on the Supreme Court that then overturned Roe v. Wade, effectively creating Trump abortion bans in multiple states. And her explanation was, I voted for him because I know he won't ban abortion.
And this goes back to the Democrats are shit at messaging.
The Democrats are shit at messaging and getting that message to the voters who matter. There was zero ground game from Trump. Elon Musk literally herded people into the back of U-Haul trucks and dropped them off in like random places in Michigan, which apparently also worked. The Dems don't have a way to counteract hate vibes. All Trump was running on was the fumes of hate vibes. That's all he had. He had no ground game. They didn't deploy one. And the other thing to keep in mind, she raised over $1 billion in like 3 months, had one of the best ground games you could possibly have, and it didn't work.
And like, it's incredibly depressing, but you know, I will say this. Oh crap, I totally lost my train of I have not been sleeping.
It's okay.
Um
I got like 3 hours myself, so.
yeah, but I just I don't understand, you know, and again, you're right. It there was no ground game on Trump's side, and
Right.
it didn't matter. But one thing I remember now, one thing I will say is one of the biggest issues that people cited was immigration and, you know, the border.
Right.
And Democrats, by leaning into that, saying, "Oh, you know, we had this border bill that it was going to be a crackdown on the border," you know, it just again is Republican light, and it fuels essentially Trump's demagoguery and jingoism and xenophobia, where he's just like, you're basically essentially playing his game rather than turning it around and saying, "Hey, if he actually does this, the price of groceries is going to go up." You know, immigrants. Even undocumented ones, pay taxes. They
Right.
actually pay taxes into the system, billions
They
of
make
dollars
your
a
goods
year,
cheaper because they're willing to work for less pay.
and billions of dollars go into government coffers every year, and they don't get any benefit from that because
Right.
other than maybe a few, you know, small municipalities, or like I think California, they might be able to get food stamps, but that's a state-run program
Right. That's a
that I'm
state
not
run program.
sure.
Right.
Like, yeah, it's not the national one, but
Right.
they basically pay into the systems that actually provide social safety net and, you
Right.
know, paving roads and everything, but they don't get any benefit from it. They can't get Medicaid, they can't get food stamps, you know, so they are a net gain and, you know, a net positive to our economy. And if they had actually pointed that out, you know, by playing their game and leaning into, the more like anti-immigrant sentiment rather than actually laying out the facts, they absolutely shot themselves in the foot.
We're gonna get to that kitty, other kitty. There's two kitties. Don't get too confused. I want to talk about what Yehooligan said first, and then we're gonna get to Kitty AB's comment. Yehooligan says, "I said it out loud after the assassination attempt on Trump that he can't lose now. Then Biden stepped down. We had Kamala. I thought Kamala was guaranteed to win." Yeah, when that happened, my dad and I were texting each other, and I sent him that photo that was taken with the bullet whizzing by his head. It's like him in profile and the bullets whizzing by. And I said, this is going to become one of the most iconic photographs in American history. And my dad said back, that's it. He just won. He just won the election. And they played it perfectly. The RNC played it absolutely perfectly. They kept it front of mind. There was the other guy that was arrested, and the rhetoric about it was that there was another assassination attempt, but it was just a guy with a rifle that they apprehended. He never fired at Trump. He never was even close enough to be within sight of Trump or anything. He's apprehended before anything happened, but the right said that it was a second assassination attempt. Now, obviously, I believe if that man had been able to get close enough to Trump, I do believe he would have, but he never actually got to that point. But the way the right talked about it was as if he had.
And they also left out the point that both of them were conservatives that took shots at him. Correct. Or would have.
Right. That's
they
what I was
basically, they leaned into the the leftists don't want Trump, and it's like, no, these were your people.
Yeah, these were Trump supporters. They weren't leftists at all. So, and they kept that front of mind throughout the campaign, that this man literally took a bullet for you. It was a piece of plexiglass that broke off the teleprompter. You can see it on the video. Like, you can watch it happen on the video. It's not, you can just watch it happen. That nicked his ear, and they turned into a thing. And that message got to voters. That here's what low information voters knew about Trump. They knew that multiple times he'd been charged or arrested with things. Those cases always get thrown out, and that someone had tried to harm him. I don't want to say that word too much. I don't you know how YouTube is. You guys know what I'm saying. That's what low information voters knew. So to low information voters, it looks like, oh, the Democrats keep charging him with crimes and trying to cause harm to him. You know the word I'm avoiding. So obviously he's dangerous to them or something. That was the thing. Trump got to run as an outsider again. Again, he got to set himself up as the outsider against the establishment. And I don't know that he was wrong. I'm not saying that he was wrong. He's definitely an outsider to politics. Definitely the type of politics that he wants to set up is outside of American norms. I think it's fascist. I think it's authoritarian. I think it's outside of the norms of democracy and our constitutional republic. But he set himself up as someone that will take the administration apart. The administrative state, in their opinion, is dangerous, and he will dismantle it. He will put RFK Jr. in charge of healthcare so that he can dismantle the FDA and dismantle the Department of Education. And Elon Musk is doing the Department of Government Efficiency.
Doge.
Yeah, I know it was Doge, but I just couldn't remember what the E was. Department of Government Efficiency, and he's going to cut spending by 33%. That's, by the way, say goodbye to your Social Security, your Medicaid, and your Medicare, and your disability. And that was what he got to run on. And he didn't need a ground game, because the ground game was being employed by the establishment that was paired with famous people.
Another thing,
and Taylor Swift.
He got to benefit from Obama's economy going in, and it wasn't till the end when the things he was doing, that were bad for the economy really started to take root. So when Biden came in, he had a mess to clean up. And that's basically the way the cycle works. The Republicans fuck things up. The Democrats come in and fix it. But then, they don't go far enough, and they don't take the issues of the common man serious enough. Just FDR, going back to my favorite historical president, FDR, like, to paraphrase, basically said that, there is a rise of fascism around the world, and people who are struggling as politicians get away from New Deal policies and people don't know how they're going to feed their kids will end up voting for fascists to get something to eat. And that's exactly what happened here, only most of it was propaganda. You had JD Vance talking about how expensive eggs were when he's standing in front of a carton of, eggs that has the price listed and it's half of what he's saying it is for double the eggs. And the mainstream media failed us. And it is because
Totally.
there is a corporate monetized incentive. They
Right.
want eyeballs on screens. They want click-through rate. They want engagement from people. And
Sure.
Trump is great for engagement because every single morning we literally look like Picard, grabbing the armrest and it's like, all right, damage report.
Right.
And like, that's what they want. It's terrible for democracy and it's going to be terrible for them in the long run. But unfortunately, the capitalist class right now, they prioritize short-term gains over long-term consequences. You will see a company that will fire half of their workforce so that they show a better Q1, profit margin, but
Sure.
then everything implodes by the time they get to Q3 or Q4.
Right. Because the
And
short-term profits made money in the stock, and the stock went up, and you sold some of your stock, so you made money.
so they don't care, but the long-term ramifications of all the damage that all those people losing their jobs does to not only them, but also the economy
Right.
and the people around them because they don't have the money to invest in their local economy by going out to eat or buying things that are beyond necessities. Like Henry Ford. Henry Ford was a horrible human being.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
one thing that we can credit him with is the idea of the 5-day work week and good pay for employees because his entire thing was, I'm making cars. And if I don't pay my employees enough to afford those cars, they're not going to buy them. And if I don't give them a little bit of time off to enjoy using those cars, they're not going to buy them. So he was essentially ensuring a customer base through, his employees by
Right.
paying them well and giving them time off. Brilliant. I mean, it was done for selfish gains, but it was pragmatic and, all the credit to that. Like,
Right.
not going to touch like the horrible things about him.
Yeah, those are obvious.
Yeah, but that is something that you can point to. And unfortunately, the capital class we have now has gotten away from that. They
Well, and
have stopped.
not only that, what because it's honest time. The establishment of the Democrats has attached themselves to too much of that. The fact that Nancy Pelosi and a lot of other Democratic congresspeople are openly trading stocks, and you can see what their gains are. You could go see how much Nancy Pelosi has made in the stock market while she's been in Congress, and it's been millions and millions of dollars that she and her husband have made. That fact is known, and it looks corrupt because it's corrupt. And if we are going to be the party of the working person, those are the kind of things we have to excise from the party. And I don't like bringing it up and I don't like saying it, but it's true. And we can't just ignore it because it's inconvenient. I want to get to Kitty's message here because I want to watch a video. I'm sure we're going to be talking about the same topic again. Kitty AB says, my teens said one issue they saw with their friends was that Harris was not addressing the genocide in Gaza. So, first of all, you're absolutely correct. 100% agree, not trying to minimize it. She didn't. Let's talk about why. First of all, we had a president in place above her. Remember, she was not president, she was vice president. And President Biden had a strategy in place of a two-state solution that he was trying to implement, that he had his entire administration working on implementing, including the Secretary of State, who was quite often in Israel. And if the vice president had come out and said things that were against the strategy the president was trying to put forward, it could have harmed what the president was trying to do. Rest assured, there is so much going on in the background with Israel, Gaza, the Middle East that we don't know about, that we will never know about. I'm not saying they were making the right decisions. I am not supporting those decisions, but I'm saying that the work was going on. Whatever it is that they were working on. They say they were working on a ceasefire. I mean, I have to believe them because it's the only information I have, and that they were working on getting the hostages back. Now, that was not enough for most progressives and young people. And I understand. I get it. 100% get it. I don't know that there was a different way that she could have handled it. Okay? What is she going to do? The president is implementing a strategy, has his entire cabinet working on implementing a strategy. She's running for president, and she comes out because she's also the vice president. And what you've got to understand, let's just assume, I do not know that this situation is real. Let's just assume that this situation happened. Let's assume that Secretary Blinken was negotiating some sort of agreement between Hamas and the IDF, okay? And let's say that the vice president that day had come out and said, oh, we have to stop sending all weapons to Israel tomorrow. That's what I'm calling for. Well, all of a sudden, those negotiations with Senator Blinken are going to completely fall apart. Completely fall apart. So you're caught between a rock and a hard place. What she did was she tried to be as soft as possible while being as hard as possible, while saying, basically, guys, I have to get elected before I can implement my own strategy, and that wasn't good enough for people.
And, here is where I go off because it's frustrating. Her hands were tied. I mean, Biden was working on those things, and she doesn't have a lot of power.
He said that he was. That's my evidence, right? Like, I don't know.
The vice president doesn't have a lot of power, just to begin with.
Sure.
And there's also the fact that Netanyahu was not a partner for peace. He never would be. And Trump was violating the law by talking with Bibi about these things behind the scenes and trying to set policy to try to help himself get reelected. And it worked. But all of the people that stayed home or protest voted because of Gaza, I really hope that they're proud of themselves, because now there is no hope for the Palestinians. There is no hope for Gaza.
I have a
Trump
video.
Trump is going to build a resort on the West Bank after the entirety of the Palestinian people are wiped from Israel. And it's not going to stop there. Netanyahu has imperial and expansionist goals. He's going to move into Lebanon. He's going to move into Iran. We're going to probably end up in World War III because of this.
Something.
And that's not even counting, the Ukrainians. And I mean, maybe they might be able to keep Kyiv, but for the most part, everything they've lost, they will have lost, and they will be essentially forced to the table to accept Russia just taking them over, because the US is going to stop helping them. And I mean, it is what it is. And they'll never be a member of NATO. Hell, the US might even leave NATO, which is a whole other animal altogether. But if you cared about the Ukrainian cause, if you cared about the plight of the men, women, and children in Gaza, you literally just signed the death warrant for it. I mean, there is no helping them now. There will never be a two-state solution, and they might not survive at all.
And if you think we're being hyperbolic, here's Donald Trump. His own words, I will just play it for you.
Unlike liberal Kamala, I will support Israel's right to win its war on terror. You have to support that. Got to win, got to finish it off. And instead of pandering to the jihad sympathizers and America-hating radicals, we will deport them. We will deport them very quickly. We have no choice.
So Netanyahu's going to do anything he wants, and any refugees that are here in the United States are going to be deported back to, I guess, Gaza. That's what your protest vote got you.
Yeah. And it could go beyond that. Student demonstrators and protesters that, want to, use their First Amendment rights. Well, I mean, Trump already said that he wants to suspend the Constitution.
Sure.
And you have 2 more Supreme Court justices that are going to retire during his term and get fast tracked to be replaced. So
Yep.
we have, for the next 40 years, a 7 conservative majority on the court.
Right.
And so much damage is going to be done. And I'm not trying to be patronizing. I was never one of like a spoiler candidate kind of thing, but it was more the people that stayed home, because I looked at the numbers, and if you count like the RFK, Jill Stein, and Cornel West votes, like there wasn't, especially Jill Stein, because she's especially awful, but there wasn't enough to really have made like, they didn't act as a spoiler by being on the ballot. However, Jill Stein and the Greens constantly pushing we should protest vote, we should not vote for Kamala.
And Nina Turner. Nina Turner was another big ones who.
Yeah. So the people that were basically encouraging people to stay home or protest vote, for the sake of the Palestinians, have essentially guaranteed that there will never be a Palestine, that every Palestinian will be wiped from the land, either forced to flee and hope that other countries will take them in,
Sure.
or just be left in the rubble until they bulldoze it all and start building resorts that people like Miriam Adelson and Donald Trump will own.
Yep.
And they will turn it into a tourist destination, and
Yep.
all of the cultural heritage of that is left after, they have been obliterated by the IDF, all of that will be gone. And
Yep.
entire people will be removed from the earth, because unfortunately, when we said, or I should say, when, Israel was founded and they said never again, they meant never again to them, not never again to no one, which is what we meant when we said that. However, because of people like Miriam Adelson, who gave Trump $1 million to allow Netanyahu to annex the West Bank. And there's no Hamas in the West Bank. That
Nope.
is by the Palestinian Authority.
Yep.
Hamas only exists in Gaza. So the argument of, oh, they're going after Hamas only works for Gaza. It does not work for the West Bank. And yet they are still continuing the settlements, and they are going to let Netanyahu annex the West Bank, and every Palestinian will be wiped from Israel.
Yes.
One way or another. And this is why elections are important. This is why it frustrates me when people say my voice doesn't count, my vote doesn't matter. Because, first of all, here in Florida, we have a lot of red districts where, yeah, your vote is diluted by all of the y'all-Qaedas. But there are constitutional amendments, and we needed 60%. So neither the 420 nor the reproductive rights amendments passed. They both had above 50%, but neither of them passed because they didn't reach the 60% threshold.
Yep.
And your voice would have mattered there. In local elections, your voice matters. But even on the national stage, your voice matters. Your vote matters, because it's people that were not out, that didn't come out to vote, that led us to this result. And because of that, not only will the rest of the world suffer, and the maps are going to be very different, because as Russia tries to rebuild the old USSR or even the Russian Empire, and I mean, Trump will let them do it because they'll give him money and, branding deals. And same thing with, the Middle East, with Netanyahu wanting a greater Israel. He has even said he wants to create a greater Israel. This
Yep.
is the exact same thing as Mustache Man when he decided he wanted to invade Poland. Like, you have 2 horrible fascistic leaders in the world that want to expand beyond their country's borders. And now the United States, who had for the longest time said, we are the defenders of democracy, we are the peacekeepers of the world, we are going to sit by and watch it happen.
We're also going to sit by and watch China do the same thing to Taiwan.
Yes, absolutely. So the maps are going to change. Geography lessons are not going to be the same going forward in school. And that's on the world stage, like not even talking about domestic policy, where if they do gut the Department of Education, then special needs kids will not get the things that they need to be able to excel in school. They
Right.
want to gut NOAA and the National Weather Service and FEMA, which means Hurricane Helene or Milton that devastated areas in the South. Well, you're not going to have the warning to try to evacuate or to know how bad it is and how much you might need to hunker down.
Well, you'll be able to pay. They're promising to privatize all of this information, so you can pay a weather service to get
And
it.
hope that it's accurate and
And
that
hope
they're
that
not
it's
cutting
accurate.
corners to, prioritize profits.
Right. Right.
But then when the storm comes and inevitably destroys, a bunch of property and homes and lives, you won't have FEMA there to help rebuild. You won't
Yep.
have them bringing in water and doing search and rescue missions to try to save lives.
Yep.
And I mean, if you were worried about finances, the mass deportations, that's going to cause groceries to go up. Like across the board. The tariffs, that's a whole other thing, and that will make everything more expensive. But groceries are going to become more costly. Cities and municipalities, counties, states are going to have less money because, again, those immigrants are paying taxes. They are paying money into the system and not taking any out. So they are a net gain to the system.
Right.
That's going to get worse. And, there's the reproductive and, the queer and trans rights. That's an issue too. Also, Trump's tax plan means that if you make less than $360,000 a year, your taxes are going up.
Yep.
But if you make more than that, then you get a tax cut.
Right.
So
Well,
his
of course,
tax breaks
we have to
only
protect
go
these
to
people.
people making, $360,000 a year or more.
We
So
have to
if you
protect
were
our-
worried about finances, you literally fucked us all.
Tom says hello and greetings from Germany. What's your opinion on what this election will mean for other parts of the world? While there are other reasons behind the scenes, I think it's telling, and it cut off the rest of your message. So I'm not sure what
It might be a
telling.
second
That one day after the election results are in, the German government collapses. Well, I don't know the German government collapsed. I did see the headline from the German newspaper showing Trump's win, and it said one word: "fuck." We've talked a lot. Obviously, we've given our thoughts on Russia and Taiwan and the Palestinians and Lebanon, for that matter. As far as NATO goes, I was back and forth with a couple of people on Twitter about this today. My opinion is that we'll be booted out of NATO. I think that Trump will antagonize them just right. Sorry, I have something in my eye. Trump will antagonize them just right and say things that are, damaging or hurtful to our allies or the alliance in general. Sorry, it's something really like a bug or something flew in my eye. And they'll end up either removing us or, I already know they're not going to share as much intelligence with us as they used to, because look what happened the last time we got intelligence shared with us. He gave it away, or sold it, maybe.
And people are no longer alive because of it.
Correct. There were a lot of people that, a lot of human assets, I think they call them, in the intelligence space that, lost everything because Trump gave that information to people who wanted to cause them harm. And that's what I think. I think America, either our role will be diminished in NATO or will be removed from it entirely. Once we are out of NATO, that makes things a lot easier for Putin.
Which, is probably the plan, the point.
Sure.
Because we know Trump has been in talks with Putin and Netanyahu behind the scenes.
Right, constantly.
And it is incredibly frustrating. For one, we're no longer going to be seen, as a stable thing. And granted, America has its issues and always has. But, we are looking at the edge of a cliff and we're about to fall over it, not only, domestically, but globally.
Right.
And I wouldn't be surprised if the UN tried to essentially see if they can't find a way to remove America's veto power. because we can't be trusted anymore.
I mean, the problem is that it's written into the UN, charter that we're one of the ones that has permanent veto power. So the charter would have to be like rewritten. I don't know.
But if we are booted out of NATO, that could be the spark.
Yeah, or minimizes it, or they set up some sort of
At the very
something
least, remove the veto power, where we might not be booted from the UN entirely, but we would no longer have a weighted representation.
right, or even access to information, which our intelligence
would devastate our intelligence.
Sure. But right now, I don't know that I necessarily want this administration having a bunch.
That's
and Tom, this will have repercussions on Israel, Rick, and others. What do you think? We kind of went over that. If you have any other questions about anything we said, feel free to ask.
Basically, the world is fucked.
Hi, you hooligan. It's good to see you. Glad you're here. Love your hat. Maya says he doesn't have to show the intention, but we have things he wants. That means we have the upper hand. Yeah. Yes. I mean, we've got the things, the tools. I don't want to say the W word, but we have the tools that Bibi wants that he would use to complete a full Palestinian removal, let's say.
Yeah.
I think you guys know exactly the word that I mean.
Yeah.
So yes, we just have to recognize that Trump's worldview on this is pure isolationism. He doesn't care. First of all, he doesn't like people with brown skin, and has multiple times promised one of the groups that he wants to deport is any Palestinian refugees that are here. He's promised that multiple times.
I mean, honestly, he's blanket said that, any Palestinian protesters he wants to deport. And, who knows? If he rips up the Constitution, maybe he might start revoking citizenship from people.
Yeah, I don't know. I truly don't believe it will get that far within the next 4 years. I think there's a few more fascist steps that would have to be taken before I'd see us getting.
I agree. I don't think we're necessarily, but he would do it if.
Absolutely, he would. If he thought he could get away with it, he absolutely would do it. Yeah.
Although he, official acts immunity, like maybe not revoke citizenship, but why not a drone strike?
Tatatek says this country is gone.
Kingdoms were ruled by kings. Empires were ruled by emperors. Now we have countries.
Exactly. So I want to show you something. I'm going to read this to you. Do not get lost in a sea of despair. Do not become bitter or hostile. Be hopeful. Be optimistic. Never, ever be afraid to make some noise and get in good trouble, necessary trouble. We will find a way to make a way out of no way. That is the great John Lewis, who, of course, I think needs no introduction to my audience. I want to implore you to not get discouraged. Don't get tired and don't get discouraged. They need you tired and they need you discouraged and they need you disengaged in order to do the things that they're trying to do. I know it's asking a lot, but the only way we win is if we continue to resist. With every tooth and nail and a few borrowed tooths and nails, because we resisted with all of our tooths and nails last time and it wasn't enough. We need some more tooths and nails in the fight. So we have to recruit some tooths and nails. And over the next couple of years, we're going to talk about that a lot here. How do we do that? And what we can do and what all of you can do to make it better. Maya said Trump told Zelensky to give up. We already know what's about to happen to Ukraine. Yeah. I mean, we do. It makes me sad, but we know. Maya just, agreed. 10 million people stayed on the couch.
Mm-hmm.
On the couch.
And so many people are going to suffer here, domestically and abroad.
Hooligan brings up a good point. I meant to mention, forgot North Korea. North Korea just became a a giant player on the world stage because Trump loves Kim Jong-un.
Yahuligan did bring up another thing.
Oh.
Is it Trump or the Trump presidency people need to worry about? Because I'm not so sure Trump has the brains to pull all this off. So it's a bit of both. Because of the Supreme Court ruling, Trump essentially has immunity. He very much could just say, I'm going to order a drone strike, on
Sure.
the DNC building, and there would be no repercussions based on what was done. So his petulant temper tantrums and his disregard for the sanctity of human life is dangerous.
Sure.
But institutionally, the bigger danger is the Heritage Foundation people that wrote Project 2025 that will once again, they were in his administration before and they will be again to institute these plans. So on a macro scale, institutionally, it's the people around him and the authors of Project 2025 and the like that will do the biggest, longest lasting damage to the country, whereas Trump might just say, you know what, I'm gonna strike over here, I'm gonna strike over there, I'm just gonna round these people up and toss
He's
them
all
into
over
a
the place.
gulag.
Freaking squirrel with his nuts cut off. Yes, one of the big plans that I think does a lot of damage is installing Trump sycophants and Trump loyalists throughout the government in permanent civil service types of roles. That is extremely damaging to all of our institutions. It endangers people who don't agree with Trump. Because what if you go down to the DMV and you're getting your license and the person giving you your license, I mean, this is kind of hyper local, but just roll with me here. These aren't the kinds of people that Trump is talking about replacing, but just roll with me here. You get on to get your license. They see on your license that you're a Republican, you're a Democrat, and suddenly they remember that, I actually need 3 forms of identification from you because of blah, blah, blah. And now you've got to produce more, and they're completely within their authority to say, oh, well, this piece of identification is, it disqualifies for some reason. You sent your wallet through the washer one time and it washed away some of the holographicness on your state ID. Oh, I can't take the state ID. That sort of thing. But, obviously at the national level, that's just an example that is kind of easy to relate with.
And that would also be devastating for voting because a lot of states have passed voter ID laws where you need to present a state ID when you go to vote. So if they start revoking driver's licenses or state IDs from people for whatever reason, then that is another way to suppress the vote because without that ID, you cannot vote.
Or what if they just say, there are grants that are allocated to different counties that those counties use that money to pay poll workers. And strangely, the grants that are going to all these Democratic counties are being delayed for all of these reasons. And the grants that are going to the Republican counties go straight through. That would be a form of voter suppression that nothing illegal is going on. It's just, I left those forms on my desk a couple of extra days. I just forgot to send them. That kind of thing.
Mailing out ballots, absentee ballots. Sure. Oh, yeah, no, we meant to send those out, but they got stuck in the back of a truck. So they didn't actually go out until 2 days before Election Day. So there's no possible way for it to come back.
Right. That's the kind of thing that we're talking about here. Not necessarily, obviously we're scared of the big things too. But what scares me the most is Trump sycophants, Trump loyalists in places of power throughout the government that can just delay things in ways that harm people, can delay grant payments, can delay research that needs to be done in order for something to get approved, for some project to get approved, a new bridge being built, that sort of thing. Those are the kinds of things that scare me. That's the kind of damage that can be done over the long term.
And it's like, oh, you live in an area that gets hit by hurricanes and you're in a very blue district and there's only one road in and out of that area. Well, we're just not going to maintain that road or that bridge. So if a storm does come through and devastate it, then you guys are all on your own and no FEMA.
That kind of thing.
And they're also going to be cutting funding to all of the social safety net programs, if you are on disability, if you require or if you rely on Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps, social security, like retirement, like all of those things are going to be completely gutted. So you already have people struggling, basically hand to mouth, living on a fixed income because they're on disability or because they're elderly and it's their social security checks that they rely on to live. Well, now that's going to go away, or it's going to be cut down to a fraction of what they were getting as they try to privatize it and make it better.
Good friend of the show, a friend of both of ours, Shadow, says America just lost the Cold War 30 years too late. You know what? I wouldn't say that we lost it, but I would say that the Soviets won it. And I think there's a big difference because they didn't conquer all of us, but they conquered us enough. You know what I predict we'll see within the next 4 years? And it makes me so angry to say this, but you know what we're going to see? We're going to see Vladimir Putin taking a picture with Donald Trump in the White House behind the Resolute desk. I guarantee you we're going to see that picture.
Yep. And there's not much we can do about it right now.
Not a damn thing we can do about it.
And it's very frustrating. We have to try to make it to the next election and try to inch back some power. And that's if they don't, do some fuckery to
they're going to do fuckery.
Voting.
They're going to do fuckery.
Or I should say, if they don't succeed to do all of the fuckery
we're not going to let them succeed. They're going to do fuckery, but we're not going to let them succeed.
Here's hoping. But one thing I will say, if you are a marginalized person, I understand not everybody has the means to be able to, leave their state or the country, but it might not be a bad idea to try to go ahead and either renew or apply for a passport and have it as kind of an emergency contingency. Yep. Because if things do get really, really bad, it's a lot easier to grab your passport, scrape together everything you've got, and take a vacation somewhere in another country that's safe, and then just not come back. Just apply for asylum. You might get denied. You might end up becoming one of those, illegal immigrants that, demonizing here led to Trump's win. But at least you would be safe, So it's one of those last ditch contingency things, especially if you don't have the means to try to immigrate to another country. And also, even if I had the means, I don't know, at least not right away, I wouldn't do it, because if all of the good people leave, then there's nobody left to fight for those that can't leave. And that's the thing that's got me the most torn up, where it's like part of me is like, I'm a queer person. I am one of those marginalized people. And depending on how bad it gets, I could definitely be a target. I'm a leftist. That would also make me a target,
sure.
And it's, do I want to keep my head down and just try to make it through and just, do things like in person with people to try to, let them know what is really happening and encourage them to vote against the fascists in the next election and just stay quiet? Or do I, actually talk about these issues more publicly, like on, TikTok or YouTube or what have you? And like, I'm very torn on that, because it's like, yes, I want to be safe, but I also want to, do whatever I can to try to help fight back.
Yeah, and it's a decision that we'll all have to come to, what we're going to do and what we feel most comfortable with. And I totally understand people who do want to step back. I totally get it. Reed says, this election made me a communist socialist. I lost all faith in the system. I'm only voting for harm reduction from now on. Well, so I would completely disagree. Maybe not completely. This has always been my feelings on socialism, and I've said this many times, but we'll say it again. And it's one of the things that Kitty and I really agree on. So we both get to talk about it. Capitalism is at its best when it is heavily regulated by socialism. That is when you get the best growth out of the market, you get the best growth in wages, you get the best growth out of companies, when it's easy to start a profitable small business, when you know that there are social safety nets in place if you need to take advantage of them. Society as a whole functions better and is healthier. What we have are a group of people who feel exactly the opposite. I was watching CNBC today because I'm a masochist, but I'm also I'm in the finance sector, so that's what I do for work. So I watch a lot of CNBC, and all that they talked about was how Trump's election will increase profits in different sectors, including, you could have this stock go up because of some layoffs. Like that's, it's a very cold, calculating way of looking at the markets, which I also do because when you talk about retirement, you guys talk about this stuff. But it hit different today. They were talking about how a lowered regulatory environment will increase yields and increase earnings over the next 12 to 18 months. And that's why the market was up today. That's the feeling, across the finance sector. And it's true. When businesses have less regulation on them, their stocks tend to go up because it's easier for them to make unfettered, unmitigated profits. They typically make those profits at the expense of people, whether because of layoffs or stock buybacks, that sort of thing. It depends.
Or dumping toxic chemicals in the drinking water.
Sure, all kinds of different things can raise those profits. And it hit different today because the conversation all day on CNBC was about an environment that included less regulation across all sectors, from healthcare to food. One sector that was hit bad today, with one stock down over 50% in trading in one day, was the solar sector. The solar sector got crushed today as people ran for the exits because they expect from Project 2025, all those kinds of renewable resources for energy are going to be slashed. All of their government grants, any loans that they get from the government in order to operate, that sort of stuff, all going to be slashed to very minimum levels or nothing. And investors ran from those stocks today. It is what it is. Like that's what this administration is going to do. That's going to be very oil-based. It's going to be very coal-based. It's going to be very natural gas-based. And you're going to have less money invested into renewable energy. Trump hates windmills. He hates solar. He hates anything that's not oil, gas, and coal.
I will say, if you own a home and you have the means to get solar panels, now would be the time.
Yeah.
Because there are still subsidies on
Right.
the books in order to get them, and it will
Yep.
cut your energy costs.
Yep.
And so if you have the means to do it,
Sure.
now is the time before he's inaugurated and starts cutting the funding to and subsidies to this sector.
Maya says they're called underground railroads. We'll find you. They are, Maya. They are called underground railroads. Real quick, because this is why I put it in the streams that I always remember. If you do want to support me, you can do it over at ko-fi.com/ProLib. And I want to thank my amazing supporters. Angry Rat, who also follows me on Twitter. Thank you very much. And on Twitch, Holy Spackle, and of course, Miss Azriel, Miss Kitty herself. Oh, I forgot to turn that off. Reed Rep says, okay, but how much holly do I need to put in my fries? Like Hollandaise? Oh, Hoyle. Oh, because I said Hoyle. Oh, yeah. Listen, I'm operating on 3 hours of sleep. So
he and I were literally up in a call until 4:30 this morning.
Yeah, we were up all night. Just,
stressed.
I do want to address. There's something else that I want to address before we get off here, because we're not going to stay super long. We're not staying super long tonight. There are more votes coming in several states, and Vice President Harris has made gains, positive gains, in I believe Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. It's great to see. If those states were to flip for her, it would be enough. That would mean that Donald Trump would no longer be. Or he would be right at 270. It wouldn't be enough. He would be right at 270, but he would be past 270 because it's only like 25 or 26 electoral votes. So it is exciting to see. I mean, I hope she does. It's sad to me that we lost the entire blue wall. The entire blue wall fell. I really thought she was at least going to pull Wisconsin. I thought she had Wisconsin in the bag. I really did. That one.
I mean, I was totally wrong. I had a feeling, I thought we were going to get Georgia and North Carolina, and
North
that there
Carolina
was a
was
chance,
in the bag, like in the bag.
and there was a chance for Florida and maybe even Texas. Like, I started the night incredibly optimistic, but still anxious because I knew, it can always go bad. I learned my lesson in 2016, that if it can always go bad, it can always, always go bad. Like, we're on the bad timeline, we can always make it to a worse timeline, and that's what happened last night.
And here's the story of the election. The story of the election is that black people showed up for Kamala Harris in basically the same numbers they did for Biden. They're basically spot on. Latinos broke for Trump by like almost 30 points. Also, Gen Z men broke for Trump pretty hard. 18 to 27 or 30, something like that. Broke for Trump. Super hard. There is a right-wing mechanism of creators, including people like Tim Pool, Ben Shapiro, all those guys.
Aiden Ross,
who all speak directly to young men in this country of all demographics. We've been saying white, but it's, when you look at it, it's across the spectrum. It's white, it's black, it's Latino. It's not necessarily just white guys. And they have convinced them that toxic masculinity is positive. It's a positive thing. They have convinced them that, I want to say this without getting in trouble, joking about those who are Israeli, there we go, is funny. And that it's not anti-Semitic at all. It's, they're just jokes. And they have convinced them that basically a woman's place is in the kitchen. And that
they're entitled to a woman.
They are. They believe that they are entitled to a woman. And Nick Fuentes believes that woman should be 16 years old. You can go look that up. That's true. And,
it's funny. The ones that believe they're entitled, like that attitude is why they, under, under regular circumstances, would never actually get a woman.
Of course. One of the things, I said this on Twitter earlier, and it sounds self-serving because I'm in the leftist political space, I know, but I don't mean me. I mean people with much larger followings than I'll ever have. The DNC needs to organize their own group of leftist creators. I don't know exactly what that would look like. I'm not talking about like directly paying them like the tenant media deal, but there needs to be interaction between those leftist creators. There's a ton of them out there.
I mean, even giving them interviews, giving them access to, like, that would boost views. Having essentially, a group Discord where they can actually discuss things, because the media failed. Like, the mainstream media just failed. They, have the protections of the First Amendment, but they didn't utilize them. They did not speak truth to power. And they enabled us to get to this bad timeline. And as far as more independent media, and new media, the issue with that lies that there is a lot of money being pumped into the right-wing side of things and really none from the left. Take someone like, Tim Pool. He was getting millions from the Russians to spread Russian propaganda. But then you look at someone on the left like Kyle Kulinski, who he doesn't even do ad reads in his videos. Like, all of the money he gets is from the basic default ads on YouTube and from like Patreon, or channel memberships. So,
somebody asked
no money.
And somebody asked a very cogent question today. Why didn't Kamala Harris go meet with Pokimane? Why wasn't she on Pokimane? It seems the most obvious thing in the world that she didn't sit down with Pokimane for an hour. That's the kind of thing that I'm talking about. I know people are going to make, because you want to get paid by the DNC. I'm not talking about me. Like, this channel isn't even monetized. I don't make dick off this. I don't make a penny. Unless you donate to my coffee. So it's not it's not me. I'm not talking about me, obviously. I'm talking about there are large creators that are either leftist or in the leftist space that walls should have been on, that AOC could go interact with. Like, I know AOC has her own Twitch channel and she had walls on, but walls should have also been with, Kyle Kalinske, with, what's his name? Cohen.
Tyler Cohen?
Yeah, Tyler Cohen.
I think Tyler Cohen, well, I don't think he got Kamala, but he did get some of like the people running for Senate. Like he actually has
I
quite
said Tim
good
Walz.
access.
I was saying Tim Walz
yeah.
with him.
Sorry, Tim Walz.
Yeah, because one of the what they didn't do is they didn't have Tim Walz go out and speak to young men directly. And they didn't do it enough. I think, him playing Madden with AOC was a great move. But again, I think...
Too little, too late.
Well, and I think her audience is mixed demographic, but you wanted to put him in those male spaces, those young male spaces. And they didn't do it enough. And so what it felt like was, this is going to sound really offensive, and I'm extremely sorry. But these are comments that I'm seeing people make. This isn't coming from my heart or my soul. What you had these young white Gen Zers that it looked like the black lady and all of her famous black friends were trying to make her president. That is how they perceived it, because that's how that right sphere, that's how that right sphere framed it for them. And it's sad it breaks my heart that that's how they viewed it.
And it goes back to bumper stickers and vibes. Like they're just giving them a couple of points to latch onto, that it's about like the feelings as opposed to the facts.
Right. And I don't like it. I'm not a fan of it, but that is what they saw. And that is how it was shown to them. And the biggest job that we have to do over the next 4 years is bridge these divides. Not just with young men or Latinos, the people that we didn't get to, but why did so many Democrats sit at home? Why did they sit at home? Why didn't they come out and vote? We have to have definitive answers to that question.
I mean,
and a way to address it.
I have like initial thoughts. Like obviously there were the people that, Gaza, but then she also had a lot of momentum, and a lot of people probably thought, oh, I don't need to take time out to go and vote because she outraised him. She's got a better ground game. Like all of the metrics we were using going into the election to think that she was at minimum going to eke out a narrow victory, if not a blowout. People were looking at that, and it misled them, because for the longest time, like the polls, it was obvious that they were hurting, and constantly hedging. But so if the race does indeed look like it is exactly 50-50, whoever has the most money, whoever spends the most traditionally wins.
Well, I'm going to put up the chart that I used in my video today.
So I think there's that. And I think a lot of people were, pissy about Gaza.
Absolutely. Oh, of course. Sorry, give me 1 second to grab this. Where is it? There we go.
And
if you watched the video today, you've already seen this, but
Maya, to your point, Latinos might believe they are the new white women, but they're not in the club unless they actually pass as white. They're not in the club. It is literally the lighter they are, the longer it'll take for them to get to them. But yeah, no, that they're not going to the Trump cookout. They're not invited.
No, they're definitely not. Neither are all the Palestinian protest voters. Palestinian refugee protesters. There we go. I got it out. Again, going on 3 hours of sleep, guys. Okay, so this is the popular vote, Democrat versus Republican, in millions, 2012, 2016, 2020, 2020, 24. The numbers aren't exact. This is a representation, but it's pretty close. As you can see, one of the things that happened in 2020 was record turnout for both parties. It was record Republican turnout. It was record Democrat turnout. Trump's talked about it all the time. I got more votes than any Republicans ever got. Yeah, but Biden got more votes than any Democrats ever got. That's why he won. The Republicans have not held as their turnout, but our turnout was vastly less than it was in 2020. The reason for that is people vote when they're bothered. Most people don't want to be bothered. They don't want to take the time off of work. They don't want to send back in the mail envelope. They don't want to go down and early vote. They don't want to fill out provisional ballots. Whatever it is, they don't want to be bothered. 2020 got them bothered because there was a global, worldwide pandemic that affected everyone that you couldn't ignore. 2024, nothing bothered them. The wages were up.
But, lots of, they made it easier to do like mail-in voting because of that pandemic. So it was a lot less on the people. Like they didn't have to put in as much effort.
And the economy as a whole is doing fine. Prices aren't great, but it's hard for me when I have these conversations with my clients and I'm like, well, how's your retirement been doing? And I'm like, well, it's doing pretty well. I hate hearing that as a salesperson because then it's like, well, shit, it's gonna be harder to get him a new retirement plan if his current retirement plan is doing fine. But and so I'll have to like have that conversation with them when they feel like the economy is not doing well, even though the economy has been doing well. And so we'll go through their paperwork and it'll be like, okay, yeah, you have had a couple of good years here. Oh yeah, I guess I have. And that message didn't transmit to voters. It was broadcast to them, but it never reached them. And the Republican notion that the economy was bad did reach them. There were a lot of people that felt that the country was on the wrong track, that the economy itself was broken or busted or falling apart. None of those things are true. None of those things are true. Inflation is down, but price of eggs are kind of high.
And let's add to the fact that, through a concerted decades-long effort, they have been chipping away at the public education system. So when Trump says, oh yeah, I'm going to slap tariffs on everything and that's going to be good for us, most people don't actually realize that is a load of horse shit.
Right.
And so it really does come down to, low information voters voting based off of vibes and not actually digging into the policy. And it's like,
right.
I'm not asking anyone to be as much of a policy wonk as me. Like I read all of Project 2025. That was 900 something pages. It was awful. Like I am obviously a masochist, but
right.
I wouldn't expect everybody to do that. But like even, some of the people in my life, while they're not policy wonks like me, they very much at least got the Cliff's Notes. They got the core bullet points from Project 2025 and they were paying attention and they went out and they showed up to vote. And today, not only are they scared, being women, but they also feel incredibly disheartened because it's like, I did this. I volunteered or I donated or I went and I voted and I got other people to vote. And it seems like it was all for naught. And that is incredibly depressing and discouraging. And Casey even shared something on Twitter. She had found a poll where someone had asked the question of, do you think we will see a female president in my lifetime? And the number of no's in response to that, every single one just breaks my heart. And sadly, I would have to add my own no.
Absolutely. And as I said earlier, I think one could win, but not with the current way that the Democrats do messaging. All right, I want to get to this real quick because I have something to say about this. Justin says, also, I hate saying this, but those anti-trans ads worked. Justin, you're correct. They did. I hate saying it too. It breaks my heart. They absolutely worked. I'd be watching football and there'd be that ad. I think it was four African-American men who appeared to be on a podcast. They weren't really on a podcast. It was just an ad. And they were talking about, oh, did you know that Kamala wants men to go into women's bathrooms? And the other guy's like, what? She does? And it worked. It was an effective ad. And it's sad. It obviously erases trans people. It frames it in a way that it's absolutely revolting and disgusting, but
Okay.
it worked.
I'm going to address something in the comments, because I'm watching them go by.
Sure.
So yes, detransitioning does actually happen. And I will say that it is a fraction of trans people that go through transition that actually end up detransitioning. And one of the core reasons why they do is because they don't have support networks. They don't have societal support. Their friends and family, they might feel endangered. And it's not that they want to, it's just they feel it is the safest option for them. And we are talking single digit percentage points of trans people that
Yes.
actually go through a detransition. And sometimes their healthcare won't cover it and they're forced to do it.
And here's
But
the thing.
of
Tim,
trans,
hold on.
well,
Okay, finish up. I thought
but
you were done.
no. So if you look at the rates of regret for surgeries, trans affirming surgeries have the lowest regrets. Knee replacements and hip replacements have higher regret rates than trans affirming surgeries.
Yes, absolutely. Tim, we're not doing this tonight. So I already told you no. If you try to bring it up again, you're out. That's not what tonight's stream is about. We have done hundreds of streams on trans issues. We will do them again. It's not that I don't want to have the conversation, but there's not a trans person in here right now. And so I don't have these conversations without my friends around who are trans. You can come back for one of those. I have one planned that'll be happening in the next week or so. You can come back for that and we can talk about it. It's not what tonight's issues are about. So we're just gonna keep on moving.
NB counts as trans.
What?
Non-binary counts as trans.
I'm saying we don't have trans people in the chat. We're not, that's not the issue of that's not what we're talking about tonight. That's all I'm saying. Trish says, will our Constitution survive another Trump term? Yes. Yes, it will. The issue is not will the Constitution survive? The issue is how the Constitution will be interpreted through judicial review of specifically the Supreme Court. Now,
okay, fair. I was going to say we're going to have a disagreement here, but your qualifying
right.
statements.
We are not. There is not going to be a repeal of any amendments. There will not be any new amendments passed that change other amendments. They don't have 29 governorships. I think they need to do that.
Yeah, I mean, there would need ratification by the majority of...
Yeah, the Constitution's not being rewritten or torn up or anything like that. Under judicial review, portions of the Constitution will be reinterpreted by this SCOTUS. Absolutely.
But yes, Titan, we are in Ragnarok. Like, we ragged Dawn, apparently. No, because they were saying that, they agreed with me twice in one day. It's the end times.
Oh, yes. Well, that's fine. That's fine. Titan, you don't count as you're a mod. I'm saying we don't have. That's not. My point is that's not the point of tonight's stream. We don't have someone.
That's fair.
Here.
That's fair. But right. I'm okay. So it's 3 times now.
I misspoke. What I meant was we don't. That's not the issue of tonight.
Absolutely.
We don't have trans people here. I'm saying we don't have trans people here to have the debates and the issues. So we're going to talk about it soon. Not tonight's topic is specifically what do Democrats need to do moving forward. That's the purpose of tonight's stream.
Fair.
I just want to keep it there. Maya, here's the thing to keep in mind. I want to talk about why I'm confident. In my state of North Carolina, we elected a Democratic governor. We elected a Democrat lieutenant governor. We flipped a seat in the House, so our state legislature no longer has a Republican supermajority. And we got a Democratic superintendent of schools. Okay? They aren't the best guardrails, but those are pretty good guardrails. I would much prefer a Democratic majority in my state legislature. bad news. I don't like supermajorities from either party because I don't like legislation passed too fast. We talked about that on a stream recently about why I don't, because it's from the original Federalist Papers. You can go back and watch it if you want. I'm sure we'll talk about it sometime. I'm already tired. Remember, I'm only on 3 hours of sleep, so I'm not getting too deep into any topic tonight because we're not going to be here much longer. But there are positive signs. We may still get the House of Representatives. That may still happen. There's still a lot of races uncalled. The Republicans were expecting to pick up like 5 seats in the Senate. They only have a majority of like 2 seats. And that can make it very hard to pass legislation in the Senate. Even that's a very slim majority. That means you need to get 42 of your senators to agree on something. Now, it means that any judges that Trump tries to appoint or any people that he tries to appoint to his cabinet are going to get fast-tracked through 100%. But as far as passing legislation, it can be hard to get 42 senators on the same page in the Senate. The Senate's set up that way. It's supposed to be a slow, deliberative body. Again, we just talked about this the other night, so I'm not rehashing it now.
And like I said, like I was going to say, we will have more conversations, between now and the end of the year, and we can definitely break down a lot of these issues and have different shows addressing different topics from different perspectives.
Maya says you're a cishet white man. You can afford to be more confident than me.
I mean, fair.
That's fair.
Fair.
That is very fair. Where's my white privilege card? You know they give us one, right? That's a real thing. It's not, but it should be. It might as well be.
I can make one of those. For comedic effect, I think I might actually just make one of those.
Hey, Andreas. I know that you could, and I'm probably getting one in the mail now. I'm late to the party. I skipped a couple of articles. Not skipped. Sorry. I'm very tired. One was that 80% under 25 voted for Trump. I don't think it was 80%. I think it was I want to say 57. It was 57 men and 52% women. I think it was 57 and 52, something like that. Of 18 to 27 year, whatever they're saying Gen Z is. So it wasn't 80%, but it was big. The biggest shock was the Latino swing towards Trump, which was 30 points.
Also, Gen X, the entire generation of, fuck bootlickers decided to line up and lick the boot.
Yeah, which I don't like. Depending on who you listen to, I'm either a very young Gen X or a very old millennial. I'm right on the cusp between the two. And millennial. I will tell you, I'm going to show you what I made. I put it on the Discord, but I made this today. Because this is when I saw that is what inspired this. It's Captain Planet just saying, "You stupid little shits." And this is to you, Gen Z. That is Captain Planet calling you stupid little shits. By the way, hey Kitty, did you hear the news?
Oh no. I'm not gonna like this, am I?
You're not gonna like this. I gotta scroll back to it because I gotta make
Why
sure
do you gotta punish me?
That it's exactly.
I drank water today. I didn't eat, but I did drink water.
The National Weather Service has evacuated its office in northeast Oxnard, California, as an out-of-control wildfire burns just 3 miles away. And that's why Captain Planet is calling you all stupid little shits.
At least we still have FEMA for now.
We do have FEMA for now, but Gen X, you made Captain America. Captain America probably is too. Captain Planet is embarrassed. He raised you better than this.
Yeah, Hooligan. If you look at the numbers, Gen X very hard went for Trump. In fact, Gen X came out for Trump and broke for Trump more than even the boomers. They are the new boomers. They are the new bootlicking boomers.
And they aren't. Here's the other thing that's interesting. They aren't as religious as the boomers were at the same age.
Which boggles the mind, because I can understand religious fervor getting you to vote against your best interests because of religious reasons. But when you're anti-establishment, punk rock generation, that is, I mean, some of the original, like, well, I mean, we're not going to count like World War II, but the original like Antifa types were like the Gen X of no, we, screw the establishment, screw the fascists. Like, we're not going to deal with any of this. And yet they lined up and they broke for Trump more than the boomers. The boomers were more on the right side of history in this election
And
than Gen
I
X.
think what you had from Newt Gingrich's plan originally was what he called the moral majority. And his reasoning was that there were a bunch of people that were Democrats, that were Christians, evangelicals, and if he could convince all of them that the Republicans were the party of family values, they would vote for Republicans for generations. Newt Gingrich also, while he did that, was cheating on his first wife, who was dying, who was laying in the hospital with cancer. Was cheating on her with the woman that became his second wife, who he then also cheated on with his then third wife. So that's the kind of family values they actually had. But that's where that whole thing comes from. That those are conservative values, and they are the value of conservatism is to pretend as though you are a highly moral person, while you are somebody like Matt Gaetz, who was paying underage girls for sex and giving them drugs, while declaring that he is a moral guy. Right? That is what modern conservatism is. That is a perfect example of modern conservatism. Donald Trump has 5 children by 3 different women. He cheated on his first wife with his second wife. He cheated on his second wife with his third wife. And yet he's the savior of these Christians, because they're not Christians. They are Christian nationalists. What they believe is that religion should be used to control the people they hate. They don't believe that religion's purpose is to help. They believe that religion's purpose is to control others, not because those people are behaving in ways that they wouldn't, but because they believe that the choices that those people make are inherently immoral. Because you're gay, because you're trans, you are inherently immoral according to my religious beliefs. Therefore, you should be punished, by the government, by a government that believes the same religion that these people do. So it's not those things don't require you to go to church. You don't have to go to church to believe these things. You just have to hate someone else and believe that they are inherently immoral for the way that they choose to live their life, even though if the way that they're living their life doesn't hurt anybody. You can just claim it does with no evidence.
And going back to Reconstruction after the Civil War and, what eventually led to Jim Crow laws, and it was always a divide and conquer strategy. If you could convince the poorest white man he was still better off than a black man, you could essentially rule over him and have him fighting with that black man for the crumbs while you ran away with the bag.
Absolutely. Tanwin, this is the first comment I saw from you, so I want to get you up here. Jesus would be so angry with America right now and he would hate Trump based on historical morals. Oh, Jesus, remember, Jesus was the one who threw the tax collectors out of the temple, flipped all their tables and threw them out. Said, not in my father's house.
Jesus was a socialist. So he was a brown-skinned socialist transient man, a homeless man, because he just traveled around and he gave out free health care and food. He fed the people and he cured their ailments. He would absolutely be a socialist.
Yeah, Jesus was absolutely, it's just socialism as a religion. But instead it's been co-opted by extremists who believe more in using the power of religion to control people, like, Sharia law or the other one. God, I'm so tired.
Like, this is gonna get me off on one of my rants. But
I know we're not going for. We're touching on a lot of stuff just because I want to get through chat. IQ, I saw that you were just diagnosed with Crohn's. So sorry, my friend.
I'm sorry. That is very unfortunate. Any chronic illness is horrible, and just do whatever you can in your power to not lose health care, because if they roll back the Affordable Care Act and you're in America, then pre-existing condition protections will go away. So as long as you keep the same insurance, you should theoretically be okay. But if you lose the insurance and have to get new insurance, then that could be a very bad time.
So we're going to leave you with this. I'm going to tell you a story. I've told this story again, but before, but it hasn't. It's been years. I literally can't talk. That's why we're signing off, because I'm literally fading over here. But I'm gonna tell you guys a story. In college, of course, I was a political science major. I double majored. I was communications and political science. Those are the two things I majored in. But my political science was with an emphasis on pre-law. So I took a few pre-law classes. I'm in no way a lawyer or an attorney in any way, shape, or form. It was just, you had to take an emphasis on a couple of different things. It was like government ethics or pre-law, and I chose pre-law because there was less math involved. Literally, that was the reason I chose it. So anyway, my first law class that I took, pre-law class, was constitutional law. It was a lot of early colonial history. That's why one of the reasons why you hear me talk about early colonial history a lot on the show, because this class I took got me interested in it, and then I started to study it more. And I learned a lot about, judicial review and that sort of stuff. No, by no means an expert, but it was a fun class to take. The very first day of the class, the professor posed a question to us, and I was sitting at the very back. Of course, I always sat in the very back of class. I was that guy. Yeah. I sat in the very back, and she posed a question. She said, give me your thoughts on the Constitution, basically, is what she said. And I raised my hand, and I said that the Constitution and the Bible were almost exactly alike, in that if you read them without context, you could make them say anything you wanted to. I went to school in rural South Carolina, and several people, I remember several heads snapping back and looking at me like, saying about my Bible. So yeah, there you go. There are my feelings on both the Constitution and the Bible. I love the Constitution a lot more than the Bible, but the truth of the matter is that you can really interpret these texts to say whatever you want and justify doing anything you want. And we're about to see that firsthand over the next little while. And we'll see how well the guardrails that we still have hold up. Kitty, what are your final thoughts?
So right now, it is important to be working on support networks, getting in touch with other people that are worried, scared, on our side of the line, the ones that are on the right side of history, even if we lost this battle, because we can't afford to lose the win. We can't afford to lose the war.
Right.
I can't talk either, so
Yeah. Again, we were up until 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah. So we can't afford to lose the war. So make sure that you have, group chats, you're checking in with people. And if you're in a position to be able to help, others that, might need to leave their state to go to one that is a little bit more welcoming and has more protections in place, to at least get them safe so that they can kind of hunker down and hope that the guardrails hold enough so that we have the chance to fix this in coming elections.
Right.
But just remember, you're not alone. None of us are alone.
Yep.
It may seem like that, but he got less votes than last time. So even fewer people supported the bigot in chief this time. So take comfort in the fact that, millions, tens of millions of Americans were with you on the right side of history. And hopefully the light at the end of the tunnel comes sooner rather than later, but it is always darkest before the dawn. And as long as we can stay strong and have those support networks and communities, and even people maybe on the fence that they might not be leftist or liberals, but they might be independents. Hell, they might have even voted for Trump based on vibes. But when they start to see the ramifications of that,
Right.
Get to know your neighbors, because have, a good relationship with people around you in your real life. Because if they do start wanting to go to the extreme, like Mustache Man did, then having people around you that might be like, yeah, we don't know any queer people on our block. We don't know any trans people on our block, anything to try to help, think about your safety, make sure that you get your passport updated or get a passport as a last ditch effort. That shouldn't be necessarily your go-to, because it is not feasible for most people to just pick up and leave the country. It is a very long and arduous process, but as an emergency, like last straw contingency, it would be a good thing to have so you can flee and then try to seek asylum elsewhere.
Yeah, and there's a lot of resources. If you check the general chat in my Discord, we've pinned a couple. And if you have any resources for people, please put them in the Discord. I will definitely pin them. Real quick, Andreas said he broke bread with tax collectors. He threw the money changers out of the temple. I said tax collectors, and obviously it was the money changers. Again, like 3 hours of sleep. I'm so tired.
He also broke bread with
Prostitutes,
sex workers.
Yeah, sex workers. Yeah.
Well, I was trying to couch it, and I said
again, I'm tired. I normally would.
Okay.
My brain is misfiring all over the place. I love you guys. I'm not sure when we'll be back. I don't know when we're doing a show again. We'll figure it out. We may need
But
to.
we will talk about these things again.
Yeah, of course. Of course. And there's a couple of people that I know want to come on that we're gonna have on.
You're not alone.
Soon.
We're in this.
You are not alone.
One way or another.
Right. We've got the Discord. If you need anybody to reach out. Yes, Nick, exactly. Election brain. If you need anybody, reach out, DM. The Discord's here for you guys. We're a community, and we're going to support each other through this. And it's always darkest right before the dawn. Good night, everybody. Thanks for watching.